This is Comic Geek Speak episode 1902, introducing Rama-Tut, Kang and Immortus. Welcome to Comic Geek Speak. I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Ian Levinstein. I'm We back in studio.
Yes. Want to look at us?
How about them apples?
Occupying the same space at the same time.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy, and which is good because we have three of the same person. And there's three of us, so that works.
We're not even here 1 minute in the divorce spell. Fantastic.
It's been in reserve, my friend. It's been in reserve. Yes.
Just kind of building up in the borscht bladder.
Oh, the borscht bladder. I like that. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
It's yours. You can use it.
Thank you. Borscht bladder. Welcome one and all to the show, and we have not done an introducing in a while, and it certainly seems
a year, I'd say.
Thereabouts, yeah. Because I think what was our last introducing? Was that the Ninja Turtles? Yes, the Ninja Turtles, Karate Kid, and who was the other one?
Was it Shang-Chi?
Shang-Chi. Yes, there you go. Yes.
Last summer.
I believe so. Okay. Yeah, I'll confer on that using the magic ability known only as searching our own archives. But while I do that, thank you for everybody for joining in, and thank you folks over at the Patreon, which is patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. But our introducing of Karate Kid, Shang-Chi, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was actually 2 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was September 17th, 2021.
You know what? I was thinking of the summer when we did, prior to that, we did the patriotic one. It was Cap and
Uncle Sam, and
that was in the summer.
Yep. And we also did introducing Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel.
Right. Yes, and that was the first time that we kind of bent the rules of the introducing format a bit. And this will be the second time in our show's history. Usually it's three different characters, three different publishers, three different decades with a single common theme.
Yep. And now we're kind of even breaking the decade part of it, because
they all came out. These are three comics that came out in 1 year's time, approximately 1 year and change.
Thereabouts. Absolutely the case. But as I was saying, though, you folks at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak, we thank you so much for your continued support of the show in any way that you can give it. As we are here in studio because of your help, and we are remote because of your help, and we exist because of your help. So we thank you very much for any continued support of the show that you give for as little as $1 a month. Indeed. Thank you. Patreon.com/comicgeekspeak if you want to join in and occasionally get some extra audio thrown in there for good measure. You'll probably get some singing from earlier on today. You never know. But
don't expect your money's worth.
No.
That was a little jarringly existential. Like, imagine if we relied on the listeners for our very existence, the way you put that.
I mean, we are talking Kang, Immortus, and Rama-Tut here, so it all makes sense to be running in that route. But patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. We thank you. And we thank you. All right. So when I picked this topic, I did not actually realize that they were this close in publication order.
I had no idea either.
Yeah. I kind of figured that the whole Immortus thing happened later, and it kind of did, because
2 months.
Well, specifically Immortus being Kang.
Well,
happened later. But the fact that Stan had the forefront, we'll get to it, but that Kang had already been decided that he was the same character as Rama-Tut this early on. I had no idea that was the case. I thought that was a later, retcon or what have you. But here we are, and we'll be discussing it in short order. That it was not indeed the case.
No doubt of the next phase of Marvel movies as well.
Most definitely. Yep. And we'll talk a little bit more on our next comic talk how that future has gotten a little bit more delayed thanks to the ongoing writer's strike and other reasons. We'll talk more about that. But the Avengers movies have been delayed at least a year as of now, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on. But nevertheless, here we are. Had you ever read any of these before, Murd?
Actually, I don't believe I ever had. I might have read the first appearance of Kang at some point. I was able to refer to this delightful Avengers omnibus that I'm holding here.
Ooh.
And with this, we got kind of a John Romita Jr. and Klaus Janson take on the classic Kirby Avengers #1 cover here.
You could definitely kill a spider with that one.
Oh, without it. You could kill like a whole nest of spiders.
Oh, yeah.
What for this thing? Which I acquired at a Wild Pig event.
Ah.
I'm pretty sure that I won a statuette of some kind in a raffle or something, and somebody else present really wanted it, and he swapped me this for it. It might even have been pants. I'm not sure. But anyway, I've had this in my possession for some time. I had to dig it out of one of the various cairns of trades and hardcovers that sprout up from the floor of my apartment to find it.
Like use like excavating materials to pull it out.
I mean, that's the only way to do it.
I needed to get the staff of Ra and so just point out the correct stack to look in. But yes, I found it, and I read the 2 Avengers issues here, and then Chris provided the Fantastic Four issue with Rama-Tut just a few moments ago. But yeah, I might have read the first appearance of Kang once upon a time just to satisfy my curiosity. But the other 2, I'm pretty sure I've never read. I've just seen multiple references to them in other Marvel comics in subsequent years.
Of course. Chris, I'm sure you have before.
I have, but it's been many years.
Okay.
Many years. So this was definitely a refresher.
This was my first time all around for all 3 of these issues.
I love when you read Silver Age for the first time.
Oh, yeah. and I'll tell you, of the Silver Age issues that I have read for this show, these are 3 of my favorites. I actually really enjoyed what was here for that. Stan was at his Staniest, I think, in the Fantastic Four issue, which we'll discuss. But I feel like there's a little bit of a different flavor when it comes to Avengers. He's a little bit more toned down at points.
I think with Fantastic Four, especially as you're getting more and more into the series, he and Kirby are really feeling the family dynamic of the team. And I think their conversational dynamic is so much more lively and, for lack of a better term, authentic. That's what made the FF so special for so many readers back in the Silver Age. And you really start to see those personalities really taking shape in these stories. I mean, Reed calling Ben old friend, and Ben complaining about this and that, and Johnny being, prankster and
ragging on each other.
Sue's still kind of in like the stereotypical. I'll
have thoughts on the women in
wagging his finger, no less.
Exactly. Yeah, but both Sue and the Wasp were experienced.
You mean like when the Wasp thought about Kang? I wonder if he's handsome under that helmet.
Because that
favorite moments of all 3.
That's
stories.
Immediately where your thoughts should go. Like, I wonder if this guy who's attacking me is hot. Like. Maybe not so great.
Silver Age Jan was a bit of an info.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Better or worse.
Yep. And I read all these digitally, by the way. They were all on the Marvel Unlimited app, and they're readily available for anybody who is subscribed to it. They're all there and very easy to find.
And being antediluvian, I had the joy of finding in my LCS a facsimile edition.
Nice.
Recently of Avengers #9.
Joy indeed.
Which I love these because they have all the ads, the letters page. I have to read this on the air because I just think it's wonderful. So much an element of the time. So that the editors inserted this new box into the book. This previously published content includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah. So, Disney Plus subscribers may recognize this disclaimer from various older Disney content, including like episodes of The Muppet Show.
Well, what I like is that I hate when they try to whitewash ugly elements of history because then you're not really learning from it. So I'm glad they didn't actually remove it. And when we get to the part, what's in there is, I think it's pretty tame by today's standards, but it's still, you can see it can be seen as offensive, but we'll get to that.
Oh, absolutely.
One moment in the story.
Yeah. And frankly, and I mean this with love, especially as a new Stan Lee documentary has been released on Disney Plus, haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I mean this with love. Stan's been a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
I
didn't know there was a new documentary.
Yeah. Just got released. Saw the trailer for it the other day and it's out on Disney Plus now.
All right.
So we're going through his entire career. But let's start at the very beginning. Usually a good place to start. Rama-Tut.
Rama-Tut.
Yep. And Rama-Tut is a character in and of himself that just immediately makes me think of Steve Martin. Buried in his jammies and all that jazz. It's it's a character that I appreciate for what it is, because it's one of the first times, not the first time, but one of the first times that the Fantastic Four have being all timey-wimey and what have you.
Yep.
And it's established this early that he may very well be of the Doom lineage.
Yes. That's right.
Yep, that hint is dropped at one point.
Yep. Yeah. And I again, another thing that I was surprised was coming up this early in the whole scope of it all. Like, you would think that would be something that would be inserted in,
like
but
later retcon. Yeah,
indeed, but not the case with this one at all. What's the issue number again, sir?
FF19.
FF19. Yep. And I'll bring up the cover to that we can share with everybody. But obviously artwork by the one and only Jack Kirby to go along with this.
Inking by Dick Ayers.
Yep.
Lettering Sam Rosen. These are all titans of the early Marvel Silver Age.
Yep. And love the cover. The cover is evocative of exactly what you want it to be, which is, just straight up, I never thought it could happen. Rama-Tut's ray gun has made helpless slaves of the Fantastic Four. There's Susan Storm. There's what happens to those who defy me, no matter what powers they possess.
You gonna tie the damsel to the train tracks next, or what?
I mean, well, so is he, because he pretty much does in this issue.
Well, he wants to make Sue his love slave.
Yeah, I also like that he's only wearing underwear. That's it's a nice touch. Just the headdress and the underwear.
Well, he comes from a very stifling, sedate, future, so he must live wild and live life to its fullest in ancient Egypt.
Also, one of the first people to prove that boredom can be very, very dangerous in comic books. So why did you go back in time? Well, I was sitting around. I got tired of TV.
Well, that's why Norrin Radd decided to go be with Galactus, because he was just bored by the sedate utopia of Zenla.
Yes, very true. Very true. Thoughts on the issue to start us off before we get into the description. Murd?
Well, my first thought is the typical nitpick. We continue to look at that cover image that Ian's provided us here. The caption there says, "At the mercy of Rama-Tut, the pharaoh from the future." Because now I know that there's a racehorse, and I think also a rapper that deliberately misspell pharaoh, Pharoah, but it is supposed to be AOH.
There you go.
Which is correct on the type page.
To the credit of, Chris is looking at the Marvel Masterworks edition, collecting the Fantastic Four numbers 11 through 20 here. And you can tell that somebody painstakingly went through the interior text of the issue and corrected every instance of Pharoah to the correct AOH. If you look closely at the lettering, the A, that second A looks slightly larger than the first one. So, kudos to whichever editorial lackey was responsible for that, because your efforts have not been overlooked.
Absolutely, and you're really getting your money's worth with that. Yep. But as for the issue itself,
non-typographically speaking, it's quite Silver Age, Ian. You're right. This is perhaps Silver Age Stan at his Silver Age Staniest. It's the Fantastic Four just randomly tripping through time, discovering a pharaoh from the future, which is a cool enough concept. But then it
By the way, sorry, just saw the digital copy, and the digital copy still has the original OAH. So that's further proof there.
Validated.
Yeah, let me stop the share here and see if it shows up. But yep, there it is. Yep. Digital copy has not been corrected. Masterwork has. So there you go.
So further proof of the labor that went into this Masterwork edition.
Yes, indeed. And clearly recolored as well, because I see that one is more of like an orange hue on it in the background, while this one is just straight up blue.
Yeah, and the lettering in the Masterwork is blue, whereas in the digital edition, it's red.
Yeah,
look at that.
Go figure. Well, there you go. Didn't mean to cut you off, sir, but there you are.
Quite all right. No, digressions are our life's blood here.
Yes, they are.
So yeah, it's an interesting idea that the Fantastic Four go back in time to find a cure for Alicia's blindness, of all things. And
of course, the catch-all is radioactivity.
Of course.
Oh, it's radioactivity every step of the way. How many plot devices turn on radioactivity? At least 3 that I can think of right off the bat.
Yep.
But yeah, they go back in time and discover that this great pharaoh that they encounter there actually knows who they are and speaks English, which is kind of what one expects conventionally of Silver Age comics anyway. Everyone's speaking English just for the convenience of the story. But here, there's actually an in-story explanation, which is, good on Stan for throwing that in there. And it turns out that this is a time traveler from the future. And you mentioned that tantalizing mention that he made of an ancestor's time machine that he found and used to travel back in time. But then conveniently the time machine got damaged and he was stuck there and he became a pharaoh. But but he still has enough technology to make slaves of the Fantastic Four and tries to marry Sue Storm because everybody wants to marry Sue Storm.
Yes.
But then the Fantastic Four improbably fight their way free. There's action. There's inconsistency, and then there's
and there's also nothing quite as Silver Agey as quite literally a slave gun, which is what that is. Like, but conveniently, if I hit you with it once, you become my slave. But if I hit you with it a second time, it doesn't work anymore, and you're no longer the slave. So it's like an on-off switch with a gun. Oh man, yeah. Chris, thoughts?
It was a delight to read this. I saw this first issue of the Masters came out, I want to say 1988. So I got them in high school or 8th grade or high school.
Yep.
And I read them then, but I haven't really read them since. So it was wonderful to go back to this. What struck me right off the bat was this issue 19, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You already can see that the Lee Kirby dynamic that was so singularly FF is already being well established by this point.
Yes.
The characters' personalities are very well delineated. Their interactions, the familiarity they have with each other, the way they're speaking to each other. Again, we have to go back to the context of Silver Age comics prior to Marvel. Characters didn't talk like this. So there's a familiarity, a warmth, a joking around that is what made these books so special and so singular for the time period.
Yeah.
And excuse me, by this issue, this is clearly in play, especially the Ben Reed dynamic. Ben, being the curmudgeon, lovingly complaining about Reed's many predilections and hangups. Reed calling him old Fred and trying to keep him on sort of in line with everything. That was a delight to see. Again, such an early Silver Age story. I mean, Rama-Tut. I mean, it's kind of the typical early Silver Age Marvel villain, but the seeds are planted for Kang, and as you noted, Ian, within the same year, I think, Kang is going to appear, and they make the connection already. And what's also great, and I've forgotten this, is that early on they established, okay, this guy could be an ancestor of Doom.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a retcon too. I'd forgotten that.
Right.
So it was great to see. Again, the Marvel Universe has such great, strong foundations, such great building blocks, and the testament to how many great stories have come from these kernels, so to speak, later on. So this is of the 3 stories we read, this is my favorite. I think the writing is the strongest in this story. Again, I think that the 2 legendary creators are really starting to get a grasp on the dynamic of the Fantastic Four and what made it, Marvel's #1 selling magazine for quite a few years until Spider-Man took that mantle. So
the world's greatest comic magazine.
So this is and I love seeing the Kirby art, like just the throwaway technology. He just draws up amazingly in different panels. The Egyptian warriors in garb that probably combines several different centuries of history. It's really fun.
1 or 2 of the Egyptians also speak English without explanation.
Well, clearly there's some sort of translation thing going. I just learned it. Yeah. That's it. They were around him long enough for the 3 or 4 years of history that were unaccounted for that they just picked up English along the way.
Well, to be fair, they haven't yet developed the classic technique of using italicized dialogue in case something is being translated.
That's a very good point. So. I really enjoyed this. I think that there were some parts that are your typical, Silver Age cheese and schmaltz and what have you, but it's par for the course. Like, I don't expect anything different. I do agree with you that of the issues that we read, the Lee Kirby dynamic here is absolutely at its strongest. Yeah. 2 out of the 3 that we read are Kirby and Lee. But this one I feel like there's something special going on here. That the back end
Fantastic Four.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it shows. The dialogue is actually pretty crisp. They're quippy at each other. They're smart alecky at times. Even Reed and Ben's dynamic that way is great.
My favorite.
Reed calls Ben a beetle-brained gargoyle at one point.
Yep. Yeah.
It's usually Johnny's shtick.
Yeah. He stepped in for that a little bit. And earlier on, there was some when Johnny went to get Ben while he was walking around with Alicia. There was some good shenanigans going on with that. And I'd say the only real problems that I had were when science got stupid, which is bound to happen because, Stan Lee ain't no scientist, and neither is Jack Kirby. Like one of the main points of this issue, when Ben gets free, that was a bit redonkulous.
Yeah. How many decades did Reed Richards, the smartest man on earth, labor to come up with a lasting cure for his condition? And he just gets a lot of sun one day.
Exactly. He's never experienced Egyptian sun before while turned into the thing.
We have to assume that Ben as the thing never went to the Jersey Shore or.
Well, no, but that's not Egyptian sun. You see, the direct sunlight of the desert is clearly enough to transform a rocky man who was transformed by cosmic rays back into a human being. It's just common sense.
And it wouldn't work today because there's too much air pollution in the way.
Yes.
It shifts the wavelength of the radiation. I want my no prize, damn it.
I was just going to say, your no prize is in the mail. Please wait for it. You're never getting it. But no, I enjoyed that. I also appreciated the whole herb thing and trying to get Alicia Masters' sight again. Reed and the Fantastic Four in general are always about helping each other out. Reed's turmoil has been, I want to try to transform Ben back because he feels guilty for it happening to begin with, and this time around he's helping out Ben again by trying to find a cure for Alicia's blindness.
And I also like how, even though Alicia is blind, she plays a key role in the story. They trust her to operate Doom's time machine to bring them back. So she has to memorize the pattern of the button she has to hit.
Right. So she's operating them without sight after all.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was pretty cool too. Yep. I do find the I'm going to marry you because you're a woman plotline very, very 60s, and it's the most 60s part of the whole thing.
Early 60s.
Yes.
Early 60s.
But we know it took a while for the Invisible Girl to become the Invisible Woman.
Right.
And it's certainly on display here, but it wasn't enough to detract from the fact that this was definitely my favorite of the three issues.
Mine as well.
And I enjoyed it a great deal. Shall we go into the plot? Well, I mean, we've kind of hinted at it at least a little bit at this point, but we do start off with the Fantastic Four still in present day, as Reed immediately wants them all to gather together because he's got something very important to say to them. Also, this is issue 19, and Jack Kirby has already gotten down what I feel like is kind of like the modern day thing. Because how he starts off like in a much
dinosaur high.
Exactly. Yeah. This is way more close to what I think of when I think of Benjamin J. Grimm at this point, 19 issues in, and I had to point that out as well. Plus his favorite scarf and hat motif that Ben is always spouting.
Plus, when you get to, I think the definitive version of that, Ian, is when you get to the Kirby Joe Sinnott rendition of the thing, where you really, I think, have the classic, clearly delineated Rocky Hyde.
Yep, definitely. But yeah, they're all gathered in one place, and Reed discusses how on a trip to a museum that him and Sue come across this display, and Reed realizes that something's afoot because this is an entire era of Egyptian history that is just not there, completely missing in one form or another, and he wants to investigate. And what better way to investigate than through time?
And he makes sure that Johnny fetches not only Ben but Alicia, because the hieroglyphics also show him that in this lost age of Egyptian history, they might just have had a cure for blindness that was used to cure a pharaoh.
Indeed. Yep. And who is that pharaoh? Well, I guess we're going to find out, shall we? I didn't realize that that Dr. Doom was presumed missing or dead at this point in Fantastic Four history.
They already fought him several times. I don't remember at this exact point.
Well, they're saying that he abandoned his castle.
Yeah.
Okay,
they're not talking about him as if he's deceased.
I don't think that castle's in Latveria, though.
Okay. So
what was it? His upstate New York castle?
New York one,
Cleveland. Yeah. Yep. Right next to the other Hellmouth. Right there in Cleveland. Yeah,
done, Levy Poo.
Thank you, but yeah, no, I like that they had to go to Doom's castle in order to activate Doom's time machine, because that's Doom is the one who created time travel, not Reed.
Allow me this indulgence, by the way.
Yes.
All right, continue.
Thank you very much. And boy, oh boy, was that a boisterous Doom. Yeah, no, I like that about their dynamic too, is that there are some things that Doom is capable of that Reed is not.
Of course.
And that's on display here as well, that, Reed can't just whip up a time machine because he, from the looks of it, doesn't know how. But Doom, on the other hand, very, very capable.
So the FF have to do a little light breaking and entering and pirate Doom's time technology.
That's fine. He abandoned it. It's up for grabs.
Yep, salvage.
Exactly. So they go in. They find the time floor, which is exactly what it is. It's just time floor, and utilize that to send themselves back into the Egyptian era. And immediately, shockingly, they're met with opposition, because it wouldn't be an issue otherwise. And that opposition is in the form of Rama-Tut's followers. And of course, Rama-Tut wants things to say.
And there's the prerequisite action sequence, because I think Stan understands there needs to be action.
Of course.
And Kirby understands it too, more importantly, because he's drawing it.
Absolutely.
And Marvel methods in place. So.
Yep, it's fun reading this and just realizing that it's Stan making up dialogue to go with images that Kirby has put in here.
And you know what?
Sometimes he's stretching it a little bit.
I think that might be another reason why that this Fantastic Four issue sings for me more than the Avengers issues do, is that I really do feel like that back and forth, that give and take, that tug and tug is on display at its most here in this issue, rather than with the Avengers, where I feel like it might be a little bit more dialogue first and then action, because obviously Kirby's busy with 800 books at the same time.
Not only that, but Don Heck, who drew the one Avengers story we're going to discuss, it's widely known that he really struggled with the Marvel method and actually asked Kirby to help him try to navigate it. So,
yep, definitely. But yeah, the Fantastic Four are met with opposition, and they are sent awry because their powers they don't work so good. And immediately we're met with clearly what would know how to stop them in the time of the Egyptians? Question. Could it be a man from the future? And yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Talking of Sue in the Silver Age here, her contribution to the fight scene is to let 4 different soldiers attack her at once and then just turn invisible and jump out of the way and let them all run into each other, because Sue's a long way from learning how to use her powers offensively as of 1963.
You better frickin' believe it. Yeah, she's the invisible girl, and emphasis on invisible as much as possible. Like, she's the more that even Stan can make her go off to the side so that the men can go have the fighting is kind of on display in one way or the other, unfortunately.
I don't think she'd even learned how to put up a defensive force field yet at this point. All she can, her power is literally just to disappear.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Well, their powers are neutralized, essentially, and then they are taken to Rama-Tut's
throne room,
I guess. Yeah, probably the best way to put it. Inside the Sphinx. And now we know that the Sphinx was not created by the Egyptians. You see, it came from the future.
You've just blown Cliff Clavin's mind.
Hey, funny story here. But yeah, they meet Rama-Tut, and as you said, Murd, they are shocked to learn that Rama-Tut understands fluent English, which is not something that they would expect from an Egyptian pharaoh.
Fantastic Four's existence.
Exactly. Yep, because he watched him on his soap operas in the future. My favorite part about this is that as he goes into his backstory and why he was so bored in the year 3000, the year 3000, was that there was just nothing to do. So he's just sitting there watching his stereoscopic 3D television Not that we would ever have anything like that in our present day or anything like that. Watching essentially like old adventures of the Fantastic Four.
Ahead of his time.
Yes, he was. Yep. And he thought to himself, well, if these Fantastic Four people can have so much fun in their era, well, then I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to have some fun of my own. And he has plenty of fun in Egyptian times until things go kablooey.
And there on page 10, there's that key panel where he's wearing his slouch-brimmed hat and he's reading. Then one day, while visiting the ruins of an amazing ancestor of mine, I came upon what was left of his greatest invention, a time machine, a lot like the time machine that the Fantastic Four found in Doom's castle.
Yep.
To come along on this adventure themselves.
Exactly. Yep. Are they using the same machine? What? Which, I mean, think of how many times the TARDIS has met the TARDIS. So it wouldn't be the first time that's happened, to say the least. But yes, major hint there that it is indeed a descendant of Doom. And eventually, don't they muddy the waters a little bit on whether or not it's Doom or Richards that he may be a descendant of?
They do.
Well, yeah. Kang / Rama-Tut / etc.'s real name has now been established as Nathaniel Richards.
Yes.
So it seems pretty likely he is at least a descendant of Richards. But it also seems likely to me, personally, that he might, like the Richards and Doom bloodlines, sometime in the next millennium, might actually miscegenate.
That's very possible.
Doom was the godfather, essentially, of their daughter,
Valeria. Yeah,
right.
Yep.
So,
yeah, the daughter that he very much helped save and bring back into existence.
The Claremont run. Yeah.
Yep, he's the reason she's named what she's named.
Indeed.
By the way, I want to give shout out to the Ant-Man film, because they really captured Rama-Tut nicely in that scene near the end where they show the different versions of Kang. It was great to see that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they very much evocative of this very costume, actually. Yeah, tidy whities and all, only they're green. Yep. And so, he goes into his backstory and how he landed there and what have you, and how he got trapped there as well. Because he didn't mean to stay in Egypt forever. It's just, it crashed.
Now look at the panel where Kang's shouting, "My eyes, I can't see." Just look at the machinery Kirby just creates for that panel.
Yeah. Even as it's collapsing around him, basically becoming junk, it's still impressive.
Wow.
Bring that up to the camera, because I may not be able to find a picture of that necessarily, but yeah, just so that everybody can sort of make that out on the Zoom / YouTube version of this. It's some really, really nice design sense there by the master himself. Yep.
So he's stranded in ancient Egypt, and he's also blind, but then the ancient Egyptians trot out a vat of radioactive herbs that cure his blindness just like that.
But radioactivity couldn't possibly exist back in Egyptian times. That's crazy talk. Part of me thinks that today it would have been from Black Panther's side of the world. And I'm sure he probably has a decent amount of that in Wakanda. So that's if it were happening today, it probably would have been a Wakandan herb, more than likely.
Yeah. T'Challa's got a hell of a spice garden.
Yes, he does. Makes up a good stew.
Magnificent Murd.
And yeah, so he gets cured of his blindness, and obviously Reed is interested in that. But before they get a chance to be able to even consider stealing or taking anything of the sort, Rama-Tut has a lot in store for them in the form of slavery, because he's got a slave gun. Turns people into slaves.
But you shall remain at my side, for you traveled all these centuries back through time, and you shall be rewarded by becoming my queen.
And you are blonde, and I like blondes, as does every other villain of the Fantastic Four.
Kind of a scarcity in ancient Egypt, I'm imagining.
They are, but he's evoking Namor here with his immediate love for Sue in one form or another. But yeah, she gets to be to the side, and of course the Fantastic Four are like, "No, you can't do that." And then zap, 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 and they're like, "I'll do whatever you want."
So strange, so powerless, no will of my own. Nothing I can do but obey. Can't stir myself. It's like I'm sleeping with my eyes open.
And then somebody gives him a Snickers, and then he's better.
Oh, God. Oh, you're in top form tonight. Holy mackerel.
Thank you. It must be the coffee. So they're stuck doing what they're doing. I like the jobs that Rama-Tut gives them.
The thing's a galley slave.
Yep. Which makes sense.
Yep.
He can lift heavy things, and
Reed is used like as a engine of war, like
a scout essentially.
And I also use him as a big shield. He stretches himself to deflect all the projectiles from opposing ancient armies.
I love that one image later on near the time where they're able to free him of all those weapons being caught in him.
Yep.
And you see like the stretched out weapons on the other side. It was actually a really cool image.
Then I love how the torch is being used to entertain Rama-Tut by creating hearts out of fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have a man who's literally made out of fire and could very easily help you on the front. So what do? Court gesture.
Yeah. And here we have the 3 panels where the sun's rays in the Egyptian desert revert Ben to his human form.
Man, come on, guys.
It's fabulous.
Redonkulous, I think you said.
Redonkulous. Completely redonkulous. And even as it's happening, and plus, why does Ben Grimm by himself somehow avoid the power of the gun, even though he's still the same person? He's just transformed.
Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't try to bring logic into this. It's comic books. Let's just relax. But that's how they're able to free themselves, because the monocles were made for the Thing, not for Ben Grimm, and Ben Grimm is free of the control as long as he's Ben Grimm. So clearly those red Kryptonian sun rays were enough to remove the powers of Benjamin J. Grimm and get him free and be able to save the day. And then as he's doing so, of course, the minute he's inside, there's no more rays. So he starts turning back into Ben Grimm again, the Thing again. But he has just enough in the tank to free Sue from her wedding, even though she's already married. Well, no, she's not married yet in the comics at this point, right? Oh yeah, right. They're
still just Sue Storm.
Yes. Okay. Well, she was almost about to become Sue Tut, and it was stopped just in time. And then using the abilities at her disposal, she frees Johnny, and then eventually they wind up freeing Reed, and then they're able to take on Rama-Tut and try to end this whole calamity in the process. That's when we find out that it's not the Sphinx that's the entire time ship. It's just this small little thing inside the Sphinx that has a very suggestive design. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
I love oh God.
I'm sorry. When I saw it, I'm like, wow, that's an interesting.
You saw it here, folks. You heard it here. Ian has reverted to the mentality of a 15-year-old.
Clearly, yes.
Ian, I want to point out, as you noted, the panel where Reed is being used as a shield by Rama-Tut's army to absorb all the projectiles belonging to them from an opposing force. I love Kirby has such a great time with using Reed in all these different poses, elongating his neck, becoming a big wheel in a sense, all kinds of fun interpretations of his powers.
Yep. By the way, I did finally find the 3 panels there of the transformation of the Thing for everybody to see. I actually really like Kirby's portrayal of Ben Grimm as Ben Grimm here.
He's the Palooka. He's the
absolutely.
He's the street fighter.
Oh, and way earlier on in the issue, we forgot to mention that the Yancey Street Gang played a prank on.
He worried they were going to play it.
Yes.
But then Johnny beat them to the punch.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yep. So they're finally dealing with Rama-Tut, and Rama-Tut gets away in his getaway car. Essentially,
he scoppers.
And we're left with the Sphinx in Egypt, and Egyptians are like, we made this.
Yep. This is ours now.
Exactly. But as part of that, and it's something to point out, is that just like the history books in our time, Rama-Tut makes it that nobody remembers that this is happening because, clearly they'll be like, well, this guy came from the future and that's going to muck with everything. And that's essentially what happened. And that's why there's that hole in history that they notice later on.
And I know, but I love how he has Rama-Tut has a capsule entitled Optic Nerve Restoration.
Yes.
Very clearly labeled in English.
It also looks like a very giant pill rather than an actual like serum or what have you. But yes, they get brought back on the timetable by Alicia, and everyone's back. But unfortunately, the cure for blindness had radiation in it and was filtered out by Dr. Doom's time travel device, and Alicia is still blind.
So apparently the cosmic rays that empower the Fantastic Four don't count?
No, that's not radiation. That's cosmic. That's different, you see. Cosmic rays. They're made of cosmic, not radiation. But so that's what happens, and they all live happily ever after
until the Molecule Man comes in the next issue.
Yes, and I own that issue.
I know you do.
Very nice.
I wanted to point out one thing I always love about reading these early stories is, and I mean this the best possible way, they're very wordy.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually takes you a little bit of time.
Oh yeah,
like a modern comic, you're done with it in 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bit of a investment, which I enjoy.
I very much learned that because as I was sitting down, I'm like, I'm still reading this. I'm so used to being done with a comic, within like 15-20 minutes. I'm like, it's been like 35 minutes and I'm still reading this. Like, wow. But that's because Stan knows how to write.
Yeah.
And
it's a very different style, a very different time.
Absolutely.
But again, this is a great example of the Lee Kirby synergy. We assume much of the plot, certainly all the visual details are all Kirby, but Lee brings that singular voice to the dialogue, which makes each character so distinct and really enhances their dynamic. It's great stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. And yeah, so there's our first appearance of Rama-Tut. And rather than have a second appearance of Rama-Tut, although there was one actually, there was in the Fantastic Four annual, correct?
That's right.
Yep. And that's where Rama-Tut and Doom met.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's footnoted in our next comic, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And our next comic, we move from the Fantastic Four to the Avengers. As Avengers number 8 there, that the facsimile edition has. What's our back advertisement, by the way?
The back advertisement: boys, girls, men, women. If you know just 20 people, and then they have 20 different heads, all white, you can make at least $50, more likely $100, $200, a lot of money then, in your spare time. Wow. Everyone needs Christmas cards. Everyone loves Wallace Brown cards. And there's a lot of copy here on about them.
Oh my God.
That's right. No one who doesn't celebrate Christmas. Just admit it.
Murd, that's right. Murd's Christmas Barn. That's exactly this. It was an advertisement for Murd's Christmas Barn back then for Avengers number 8.
Yep. And our barn did exist in 1964 too.
Well, there you go.
And a free album of popular priced name imprinted personal Christmas cards.
Act now and you'll get Santa steak knives at no additional cost.
Wallace Brown Incorporated, 11 East 26th Street, Department D, 134, New York 10, New York.
Oh, wow. I kind of want to go to that address and then demand my Christmas stuff. And then they'll be like, sir, this is an art piece.
And then the inside back cover, boys, men. The name Mike Marvel.
Ooh.
My secret new Dynaflex method. Can you build a magnificent new He-Man muscled body in just 10 minutes a day? With absolutely no weights, no barbells, no exercise at all? Because that's really going to happen. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And for 12 easy payments of $19.95.
Wow. This is great stuff.
Oh,
I'm so glad. I love these facsimiles. Oh.
Yeah, they are great. Yeah.
And this ad was around for a long time. The fishing rod.
Oh, that one. Even I recognize that one.
That was around. Remember this one, Murd?
Sure.
A lot of books for
3 complete fishing outfits. Yeah. Nationally advertised 1964 models.
Wow. Man.
This seems a little more legitimate. So $12.95, which is a lot more money in 1964.
Mm-hmm. 411 pieces.
3 sets for the price of a reel alone.
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. But yeah, we get introduced to Kang the Conqueror here, and boy, oh boy, is it an
awesome cover.
It is an awesome cover, God. And it is a very chunkier design for Kang the Conqueror than I am used to seeing, because especially when it comes to the helmet.
Right.
That is very different.
Much bulkier.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It actually looks like a helmet rather than it being like part of it. Like I say today, it looks more like almost like a helm, or like it's connected as like part of armor.
Yeah.
And it looks much more like a racer's helmet or what have you in the version that
they've
Kirby
streamlined
created.
it.
Oh, definitely.
In modern comics, but it's still the basic Kirby design.
Mm-hmm.
I love, of course, the full-length boots.
Yes,
that he's wearing.
Those boots go all the way up to the top.
Yes, they do. With orange pipe. Is that orange or yellow? Yellow piping.
Looks like he belongs in Studio 54 in the 70s. Great,
he kind of does.
With a green leisure suit on top, because why not, man? And I really like how the cover doesn't really tell you what it is. Is it an alien? Is it a guy in a suit? You only see so much of the character of Kang that it could be pretty much anything.
And I love the again. Stan was always great with the exclamatory copy to excite the reader. This is Kang, destined to rank as one of the most unique villains of all time, and wait to learn his surprising identity. So they had already had that seed planted.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I wonder if that was. Obviously, the collaborative nature of it all. I wonder if that was a Stan decision or a Kirby decision. We will never know, but the answer is both, probably. Yep. Thoughts on this one, Avengers issue 8. Chris, you want to start us off?
So, I love this. Kang's always been a favorite, a villain of mine. I really love how he's been getting his due lately. Mm-hmm. But he's a villain that. Would you agree, Murd, that Kang was underplayed for a long time in Marvel Comics? Like, he didn't really have the gravitas he should. Like in the Secret War story, he was like one of the first villains killed, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, in quotes, killed by Doom.
He was just kind of a blowhard, a time-traveling would-be world beater. It wasn't until people started taking seriously the
Avengers Forever.
A little before that, I'd even say, like during Roger Stern,
the John Buscema stuff,
the Council of Kangs kinds of things.
Yep.
Even the Terminatrix objective, stuff like that, all of which predates Avengers Forever by a bit. Although that's certainly a key moment in his evolution. But not until they started taking seriously the terrifying implications of a man as malign and just bent on tyrannical conquest as Kang is, having access to time travel technology.
Mm-hmm. And the idea of him procuring armies, weaponry from all these different eras, then to use them as he sees fit as he goes throughout his campaigns of conquest. Ian has a great image up on the screen right now. We're first introduced to Kang sitting imperiously with no regard for his potential adversaries, the Avengers.
Lounging in midair in his invisible parka lounger.
Classic Kirby, like the invisible lounge he's sitting on. Yep. Mm-hmm. But just like the Caesar-like pose of complete command and control. Mm-hmm. It's a great introduction. And also, again, the strength of Kirby's design, it's a striking visual. What I loved about the story in particular was very Marvel's early Silver Age, in that they bring in all these elements that you can associate with the real world, like the United Nations, the military, the Undersecretary of Defense. The Avengers have the public is clamming around their mansion to get a glimpse of them, which, again, that early Marvel approach of, unlike DC, like, we're going to have our regular people react in awe and astonishment when they see these characters on the street, which is always, I think, one of the great early facets that made Marvel so unique at that time. But all those elements are great, but they're often rendered in ways that, obviously, especially today, are really absurd.
Yeah.
Which I also just get a huge kick out of. I think my favorite moment, though, of the entire story, well, there are two. One, of course, is when Jan, I'm going to read it again. She says out loud, "I'll bet he's not bad looking under that silly headgear he's wearing."
God,
which is just tremendous. And Kang is one of the most brilliant villains in the Marvel Universe. Yet he allows Rick Jones of the Teen Brigade onto his ship and says, "Go fetch this weapon for me."
That's the whole Teen Brigade thing is something I'm very glad goes away. I know that I'm sure Stan was looking to be hip and cool with the kids and whatnot, but
they're radio hams.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a person who is an avowed hater of teen sidekicks, and yet he's got. I mean, granted, these aren't true sidekicks; they're not costumed yet, but they're just kind of random, ordinary kids, teenagers.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not great. But at the same time, I like Rick Jones' involvement. I wish it was actually kind of going somewhere that I feel like it's not, just because like I know he eventually kind of becomes Bucky for like 3 seconds and what have you, which is hinted at in the Immortus issue.
In the classic
when we get to it.
Cap issues later in the 60s.
Yep, but I just really don't feel like it's like they're going for a Jimmy Olsen thing almost, and the Avengers don't need a Jimmy Olsen. They're the Avengers.
Well, it's more exactly a snapper car.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, good reference.
The Justice League already did have their snapper car in place, and here's Rick Jones. And in this story, he's tagging along with the Avengers. Like he's going into this super secret meeting with the Pentagon via remote teleconference, and Rick, this teenager, is just sitting there, and he gets to be in the room.
Yeah.
Well, they must have given him security clearance.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't they?
He's just like the government in 1964 to trust teenagers.
Oh, definitely. Get off our lawn, kid. At the same time, here, have some clearance.
I also enjoyed, and this is all Kirby, the way he demonstrates the many weaponry and powers of Kang. How everything is essentially built into his garb. The different buttons he clicks, it showing there's a formidable opponent. Because again, Kang is taking on all the Avengers by himself and more than holding his own.
Sure.
As a quick side note, so thrilling to see the ads in the facsimile for other Marvel comics debuting that month. X-Men #7, The Return of the Blob. Sergeant Fear's Howling Commandos #10, On to Okinawa. Daredevil, the Man Without Fear #3, The Owl, Overlord of Crime. So
nice,
great stuff.
Is that the first appearance of the Owl then?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Devil #3. Yep. Still the yellow costume there for DD.
I think I had his second appearance at one point. But not the first one. By then he was Daredevil was already wearing red, so it was a little bit later on. Murd, thoughts on the issue?
I think this one is probably my favorite of the three that we've looked at here. I appreciate kind of the wide scale importance given here. You know, Chris mentioned the involvement of the United Nations, the Undersecretary of Defense. There's military present. You know, just from the very first page of the story, the Avengers are being summoned to take a teleconference with military personnel to warn them about this mysterious flying craft that's arrived out of nowhere. Just it really gives it a global scope. You know, it's more than just the Avengers heading to like downtown Manhattan to fight the Space Phantom or something. It's this Kang is being treated like the big deal that he will eventually become, and I feel like Stan and Jack are drawing on some of their old like Atlas sci-fi monster and alien invasion stories here, but they're throwing the Avengers into it. And although this bit here on like the third and fourth pages of the story, when we're seeing footage where the Avengers are being shown footage of Kang's ship arriving and his reducing to rubble the military vehicles that go out to meet him and then coming out and addressing people. It's pure the day the Earth stood still.
Yes, well put.
It's just alive with the science fiction thrills of the day.
Yep. Yeah, I enjoy this issue, but at the same time, I have some problems with it, and it's mostly everything involving the teenagers. And I
feel you.
At one point, I
love being Silver Age wrath.
Well, at one point, I expected them to offer Kang a Hostess cupcake, like, because that's the level of ridiculousness that we wind up with in this issue.
A serious and sober contribution to the story?
You know, I shockingly don't. I don't know how that could possibly be the case, but it just doesn't wet my whistle that way. It just doesn't happen. But I like the Kang stuff, and I like how it builds upon the Rama-Tut stuff in the way that, you know, we're clearly getting further along in Rama-Tut's timeline, that he's now dealt with like the year 4000 accidentally, and that this then led to, you know, Kang as we know him. Doesn't mean we won't eventually get a Rama-Tut again. It just means that this is now further along. It's like meeting the fifth Doctor when you've been hanging out with the fourth Doctor. You know, it's later on in his timeline. I really like that this early on, as we said, Stan is building upon his previous stories and giving us newer takes on characters that he just kind of introduced, which is pretty damn cool. Some of the interaction with the Avengers have is cool and unique. Other interactions are just kind of silly. The Wasp is again, unfortunately, not really a character. She wants to go to the mall. Like that's
in fairness, she does use some technology.
She does. And that I liked a lot. Just that we've already mentioned the line like 4 times. It's stupid and it shouldn't have been there. About I wonder if he's dreamy. I like Giant Man in this. One of my favorite designs of Iron Man, and always will be. The nice classic, red and gold design, and that's pretty cool. And
designed by Steve Ditko, by the way.
There you go. But Thor here too. I'm so used to thou art Thor that it's kind of refreshing to not really see that yet. That he's still kind of talking like a human being.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Elizabethan dialogue that starts to come in, especially in Thor's own book, as we move further into the Silver Age. I love that because it's just so majestically hammy. But you're right; it's not really in evidence here yet.
No, and we even get to see later in this issue. We get to see more of the Donald Blake / Thor.
Well, he only has 60 seconds.
That's true. Exactly. Plus the holding bays and what have you, those are pretty cool. But the way they got out of them, again, Hostess Cupcake style with the teenagers, not my favorite. I dig what he was setting up. I just wish it had been a little less ridiculous. And
that charm is part of these stories.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You open any early Marvel Silver Age book penned by scripted by Lee, and you will find moments like that in the plot.
Would you free me for 3 Scooby snacks? All right. Well, let's get into the issue itself and how it rolls. Murd, by all means.
Okay. Well, Stan opens us up with this caption: "You're just in time."
Oh, great.
A top priority emergency meeting of the Avengers is about to begin. Now, as the New York City police hold back the crowd, the world's mightiest team marches by. And there's the people reacting in awe and excitement, as you said, Chris, to their heroes making their way in for this conference. The Avengers have a little conversation among themselves about parliamentary procedure. So they're talking about how they have a rotating chairman in place and whether or not they should maybe elect a permanent chairman. So there's different points of view. The Wasp thinks they should have a permanent chairman. Iron Man thinks it's more democratic to just pass the baton every single meeting.
Yep.
And it's Cap's turn this time, so he instructs Thor, who after all comes from ancient Norse land. He assumes he doesn't know how to turn on a TV. So. But he does, and they're in conference with military personnel at the Pentagon, and they show them some scenes of Kang's arrival in the woodlands of Virginia. And so that brings us, the readers, up to speed. At the bottom of page 4, we get an extreme close-up of that bulkier, bathysphere diver Kang helmet that we get in this issue.
Yep.
Really is, much more striking and much larger than he would eventually become.
It almost looks like in some ways that it has almost like a halo to it to go along with it, whether or not that was intended or not. It just makes his entire head look that much bigger. Yeah.
Well, there we go. It also makes him look kind of otherworldly. We're still kind of on being kept in suspense as to what he is here.
Yeah, whether or not he's an alien or whether he's something else. Yeah. I will also add, as you mentioned, I kind of like the rotating chairman thing. How it's like how, at some offices, like a different person takes the notes every meeting, so just to split it along and what have you, that it makes them feel like this is a team and also like a job for them on top of their regular superhero duties.
And they've kept that tradition. There are many different chairpersons of Avengers over the years.
Yep. Very good point.
But I think eventually they did establish a term length.
Yes.
It's not like a different chairperson every time they have an adventure, but like a different chairperson every couple of months or something.
Yep.
So anyway, the Avengers almost immediately jet off into action. Like 2 panels later, they're running up to Kang in his invisible armchair floating in midair. And that's when Jan wonders if he's cute under the helmet.
Yes, he's a complete darling. He's a complete sweetheart of a man. Yes.
And he utters this great line: "No need for such unseemly speed. Time means nothing to Kang the Conqueror." That is great. And then Iron Man says, "You who call yourself Kang the Conqueror, state your business here by order of the Avengers." And Kang replies, "My business? Conquest, of course. I'm the Conqueror. Duh." And so, and then he gives them a demonstration of his amazing superior technology. It's still kind of up in the air whether he's an alien or not, but what he clearly is better equipped than the Avengers are at this point in the story.
Let me pause for a minute. So my facsimile edition, because it then says, continued after next page. More triumphs for Marvel.
Oh,
look at this!
Oh wow!
Oh, the annuals.
Marvel Tales annual number 1.
Put that towards the camera there, sir. Yep, there we go.
Amazing Spider-Man annual number 1 and FF annual number 2, the classic origin of Doctor Doom.
Oh man,
very nice.
The first
I'm sorry.
The first Sinister Six is the Amazing Spider-Man annual. I came this close.
I remember you telling me
to winning a copy of that from Tom Brevoort's personal collection.
Oh wow! And wasn't annual number 2 also where Rama-Tut showed up, if I remember correctly?
I think so. Yeah, it's in the footnote that we'll see. It's on the very next page, page 7. FF annual number 2. Right,
that's how close together those stories were. So how about that?
And also to point out, because again, in my facsimile edition, the modern day editors wanted to make us aware of cultural sensitivities of the time. On the next page is an ad for Boys and Men. I'll help you master Yubiwaza.
Yubiwaza?
Yes. Says N.J. Fleming, Yubiwaza master.
And then in parentheses, Yubiwaza is the secret, amazingly easy art of self-defense that turns just one finger or your hands to a potent weapon of defense without any bodily contact. And then, I'm only 98 pounds, yet I can paralyze a 200-pound attacker with just a finger because I know Yubiwaza, says Yoshi Imanami, pretty Japanese wife in New Jersey Fleming.
Oh no! Oh no! And I hear Yubiwaza, and it just sounds like something somebody would say. Hey, whatchamacallit? Hey, Yubiwaza. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about.
Moving on.
Terrible.
Fantastic.
Okay, so Kang shows off his fancy devices and beats up the Avengers. He's got anti-gravity fields. He's got subspace warps, and meanwhile, the military starts to move in and set up a perimeter, and sent in to negotiate is the Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Defense, and he steps in to negotiate with Kang, and it's at that point that Kang says, I need explain nothing, and yet perhaps I shall tell you more about me, so that you will realize how...
I won't tell you anything. I'll tell you everything.
I'll never tell you. Okay. Okay, so and then we get the origin of Kang, where he says in one panel, yes, I was born in the year 3000, where I mastered time travel. I journeyed to your far past, calling myself Pharaoh Rama-Tut. Then I came to this century, where I met Dr. Doom. Asterisk, see Fantastic Four number 19, double asterisk, see Fantastic Four annual number 2. So that's where we learn that Rama-Tut was in fact a descendant of Doom, and here's where we learn that Rama-Tut that Kang is Rama-Tut.
Continuity.
Yep. It's beginning. Lee learned as every year passed what a sales device continuity could be.
Yep.
And also, he needs to be given credit for this. And I think we've given credit to him several times in this podcast before. He was one of the first writers not to just come up with a different generic character all the time. Like it used to be, there'd be needed a gangster, you invented a new one, disposable. Use it once and get rid of it. You needed an alien invader, use it once and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Stan started coming up with recurring gangsters, recurring alien invaders. Rather than just trying to recreate the same character over and over again, he would just use the same character over and over
again.
Just build it into a brand, if you will.
The Masters of Evil, for that matter. You know, I mean, that they're very much a central group of villains in the Avengers many times. So, yeah, I mean, if you have cool designs and you have interesting characters, it makes sense to reuse them. And here, I mean, this character design for Kang, it's so out there, and at the same time, really weird and menacing.
Oh, absolutely.
And how could you not do that again? You know, it's just fun. It's good stuff.
Yep. It says future barbarian.
Yes, it does.
And also disco king.
Yes. Why not both?
Yeah, and I can see why Stan got such a kick out of Rama-Tut. You know, the idea of this like indolent future man who got tired of TV in the year 3000 and comes back in time to try to be a big shot with his futuristic technology. And he just he takes the same idea and just takes it in a slightly different direction.
Yes, indeed.
Instead of, time pharaoh, and now he's time by barbarian.
Yeah, and a lesser writer would have done exactly what you said. Would have been like, well, I want to do a new time travel story. Let me create another guy who's exactly like the other guy, only a different name. And that's not the route he went. Instead, wait, he's a time traveler. Well, he could be both. It makes perfect sense. There you go. Yep.
And Kang's flashback, which is actually a flash forward since time travel, continues. He explains that his new look and his new weaponry is a result of his accidentally, after his encounter with the Fantastic Four, shooting too far forward in time. Instead of going back to his native 3000, he ended up in the year 4000. The 40th century is barbaric, savage, with men constantly at war, fighting with weapons so scientifically advanced that they cannot even understand their composition, for they were manufactured centuries earlier by more intelligent humans. So it was a simple matter for me to muster the barbarian warriors to my side, to make them my serfs. Within weeks, I had carved out an empire for myself, but it was a hollow one, for I was merely ruler of a dying world.
That's going to be a recurring problem for Kang, getting bored with where he is.
Mm-hmm. And when he is. Yep. It's never quite enough. Fortunately, he's got all of time and indeed many different tributaries of time in which to work his mischief. So anyway, that's when he first got this idea to go back in time and try conquering past eras as well as just other land masses of the 40th century. So, and we don't know for sure whether this is his first foray into the past as Kang, but it's his first encounter with the Avengers, certainly. And his act here is to proclaim himself Kang the First, ruler of the 20th century. The Avengers try to manhandle him at that, but it doesn't go so well for them. Another fight breaks out. The Wasp actually does make herself useful here because, well, similar to Sue, her great power here is being hard to notice. Because she sneaks up to Kang's giant honkin' helmet, and she's able to identify a main power source on it. Because, her dad is a scientist, Dr. Vernon Van Dyne. She knows a thing or two about technology. So she goes there and tries to disable it, but she trips an alarm, and Kang just kind of grabs her. Unfortunately, Hank is able to use his own cyber helmet to enlarge her again before Kang can squish her between thumb and forefinger.
Two quick things of note. One, I wonder if his invisible technology, he may have very well based on his experience with the Fantastic Four and with Sue, because it certainly reminds me of her later abilities, the invisible force fields and invisible projectiles that she would use later on in her career. So you never know. And two, I guess the Fantastic Four just have a much better publicist, that there's a whole bunch more footage of the Fantastic Four, and he's really familiar with them in the future. And yet he doesn't really seem to be very familiar with the Avengers.
Yeah, well, they were in his queue, but he had to try and travel first. He just never got back to it.
Netflix 3K has a bunch of stuff on the Fantastic Four, but not a lot on the Avengers.
The amount of entertainment choices we have today. I mean, what does Kang have in the year 3000?
Oh, yeah, no. Actually, weirdly enough, there's only 2 channels.
What? Oh, I missed you.
So anyway, thanks to the Wasp, the Avengers actually do get the upper hand on Kang briefly, but then he turns on an attractor ray that sucks all of the Avengers except for the Wasp and Rick Jones into little separate compartments where they're held in different stasis beams. Thor is somehow compelled by an electrochemical reaction to revert to Don Blake.
Gee, this seems oddly familiar. I guess he didn't have any Egyptian sun rays on hand this time around, but somehow magically he turns back into Donald Blake. You keep on trucking, Stan. You keep on trucking.
Meanwhile, poor Giant Man is returned to normal size. Iron Man's artificial Iron Man armor pacemaker is malfunctioning. His heart is starting to give out on him. And Cap is just held motionless with his steel. Of course, we know later on that there's more metals here than steel.
Yes,
in that thing, but it's heavy enough that it's just kind of laying on top of him, and he's wondering to himself what the Wasp and Rick can do against a man with the powers of Kang.
Clearly, they can get the Team Brigade, because that's the only solution.
I love when the Undersecretary of Defense is trying to negotiate with Kang. Kang threatens to obliterate the moon.
I mean, that's what everybody wants to do at some point in their villainous career, is take out the moon, or at least try to write chair on it and only get the cha.
But the Undersecretary is cowed enough that he says, this is too big a decision for me to make on my own. I got to go consult the White House and chiefs of state and what have you. And in the very next panel, Wasp and Rick make plans of their own. And page 13 finds, the Wasp is planning to go back to Avengers headquarters to get some special weaponry that might be able to be useful against Kang. And Rick is going to go get the Teen Brigade to help him with his plan to free the Avengers.
Yes.
Which is not a very solid plan, even if he found some more competent people than the Teen Brigade to help him with it.
Unfortunately, the Fantastic Four were busy that day. Spider-Man was unavailable. The Hulk is the Hulk. Teen Brigade.
Yeah.
You're really down on the Teen Brigade, man.
I don't like them.
I'm totally on Team Ian here about the Teen Brigade. I like the way Kirby draws them. I like the fuzzy white hat the one guy's wearing, because I can see teenagers in 1964 thinking that's cool.
Yeah.
And the other guy's got like a varsity football jersey or something on. Sure.
I think also, like you mentioned, the snapper carness of Rick Jones, and I just think the Teen Brigade is basically the Newsboy Legion. Right? It's just another take on that
Kirby Kid Gang.
Yeah. Exactly, another Kirby Kid Gang. So why not? You know?
We should note the panel where the UN meets and the various great powers all pledge their support in a united front against Kang.
Yes, in multiple languages or pigeon versions thereof.
The British delegate goes, righto.
Yeah, so that he's speaking British. Da, yes, si, righto, we are so. Michael, and that's Michael Scott Chinese right there.
Hence the disclaimer.
Yes, indeed.
My favorite part of the story is the upcoming page where the Teen Brigade convinces Kang, despite his centuries of experience as a Machiavellian conqueror, that they want to be on his side because they know they have no chance against him otherwise. You are wise beyond your years. You should become my first personal Earth servants.
Now enter my ship and familiarize yourself with it.
I've been in the year 4000 long enough that I haven't had interaction with human beings in quite some time. You are human beings, and I wish to talk to you. You will be my friends. You will help me out.
Now get up in my ship and figure out how it works. Find my weaknesses, I dare you.
It's
my friends, the favorite part of it.
Thank you. Oh man,
tremendous.
Yep. And by the way, I did find it a Rick Jones from this very issue, and I love the coifs of hair that both Rick and Janet have in this very issue. The same panel right there on the page that you're looking at.
Janet also has her skull, like her skull cap on too.
Yeah. Love the coif. It's just really well executed. Dig it.
You've had time enough. Now I want you to bring me something from the ship. My voice will direct you to it.
Bring me my Camel cigarettes.
So Kang smokes Marlboros unfiltered.
Oh no, that's fair. That's fair. Good point.
All right, and here's where the Teen Brigade makes their move, because after they've retrieved this whoosy whatsis of war, the Yubiwaza of war.
Oh man, if we had subtitles for episodes, it would be the Yubiwaza of war. That is amazing. Oh wow.
So this is what Kang sends him to get. It's vital to his plan, so he sends this group of teenagers that he's known for 2.5 minutes to bring it down to him. And on the tractor beam down, they're like, whoops, we dropped it.
Not my Imodium space modulator.
Imodium Q-36 explosive space modulator. Delays.
He made a huge mistake trusting teenagers.
That's the moral of the story.
Exactly. To carry anything, to do anything, don't trust teens. Big mistake.
So yeah, the Teen Brigade dropped the thing. Kang immediately forgets everything else and hurries to repair it. Meanwhile, the Teen Brigade rush off to, they stumble across exactly the right 2 buttons on Kang's ship that they need to press to free the Avengers.
Yep.
They might as well be labeled 2 free Avengers. But that's what they do. And Don Blake is freed from the stasis field. He taps his cane upon the ground. He becomes Thor. And then he goes out and helps to free the others. Iron Man heart starts beating again, I guess.
I like the hollowed out eyes that Kirby drew for Iron Man on this, just to show that something's not right. Because all before this, we saw the white, the actual like pupils in his eyes, and now it's just.
Yep, he's almost dead. So
yep.
Well, he couldn't find a wall socket to plug into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they didn't have USB back then, so it was a little bit harder. Yeah.
Well, you know that Iron Man had a emergency plug in his armor.
Yes.
Okay.
I do know that. And also at one point he had a nose and ears.
Yes, he did.
Yes. Big mistake.
Oh, yes. The infamous
nose. That was the
Iron Nose. Yeah.
Yes.
Meanwhile, at Avengers HQ, the Wasp has found some more gadgetry that will be useful to the Avengers. She found one that she refers to as a power ray.
Good for the Wasp. Good for her.
Yeah, although by the time she gets back to the scene of the battle, it's become a completely different type of weapon.
Yeah, I was going to say, this energy weapon will help me shoot acid. All right, okay, fine, whatever.
It's from the Island of Misfit Toys. Or a power ray that shoots acid. We're all misfits.
I'm so glad I'm here.
I'm glad you're here too.
Thanks,
I'm glad that we are all here.
Yes, amen to that.
All right, so then the Wasp gets help from flying ants to carry this weapon, whatever it is, back to the scene of the battle. The Avengers are holding their own against Kang because he was too busy repairing his Yubiwaza to pay attention to what they're doing. But they hold their own, and then Wasp shows up with this device, and it turns out that it shoots a cloud of corrosive acid, which turns Kang's personal gear into so much scrap, but he still has an out because all he has to do is lift up his hand and interrupt an invisible eye beam, and it fires out a neutrino missile, but which is equipped with the most sensitive atomic-powered detectors, which allows it to automatically seek and find any who oppose me. But then Iron Man just shoots it with a repulsor ray, and it shoots straight up in the air. So much for the search and destroy function. It just and it explodes up harmlessly in the subatmosphere.
I appreciate how deflated Kang gets after
all his toys are gone.
Yeah, exactly. It also
I think he means visually deflated.
Oh yes, yeah.
His outfit looks like a torn, deflated balloon. Literally,
good point.
It basically looked like he was wearing one of those fake muscle suits that they used to give the superheroes back in the early 2000s.
Yep.
And then with the it got melted, and now we see just how scrawny he actually is underneath. Which I wouldn't put past Kang, by the way, as part of his stage and stature. Like, I am a very strong man, and then of course you see like a muscle drop, and you realize that it's just all part of the it's all part of the act in the end. It's all part of the game.
He's probably got some future equivalent of a cucumber wrapped in tinfoil down his pants.
Hey-oh.
It's the Kang codpiece.
Wow. Murd,
I wonder if he's attractive under that helmet. All right.
Oh, Jan, you're not going to live that one down.
Nope.
But then, as a last resort, he turns to his last and greatest weapon, radioactivity. Can't get through a Silver Age story without it.
Nope.
It is the one power, the one force you have no defense against. It is the method with which I shall destroy you. Because apparently in the future, everyone's immune to it. So much so that he's able to have his helmet emit it. Like, it's coming right out of his head, and it's not harming him, but it's going to harm the Avengers. But then Mjolnir comes to the rescue with another amazing ability. It absorbs the radiation and hurls it right back at Kang, but more intense, so strong that even Kang isn't immune to it anymore. He runs for it, screaming, "If I absorb much more, I'm doomed. I've got to reach the..."
Doomed. Okay.
I've got to reach the safety of my ship. My survival is all that matters. And he flees. And the Avengers are left standing by, saying, he knows now that he isn't unbeatable. He knows if he returns, the Avengers will be waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of love the...
Lee's closing copies.
Yes, the dialogue here at the end. The Avengers will be waiting. Thus has it ever been. Thus will it ever be. So long as mankind is in jeopardy, so long as the mother planet Earth may be menaced, so long as the forces of evil dare to challenge justice, the Avengers will stand, ready to fight, to sacrifice, to perish if need be, so that liberty and hope shall ever live in the hearts of men. And also the Team Brigade are there.
Great 1940s play-by-play, Murd.
Yep, I'm going for Herbert Morrison. Alexander Scourby, maybe one of those old newsreel narrators.
I could also add at the end of that, and if you're in trouble, the A-Team are here. And they are the A-Team. They're the Avengers. So there we go. It all makes sense.
Starts with an A, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Team Brigade standing far off in the background, also present.
Yep. And then because this is the omnibus that it is, it even has the letters page included. So, yep. And I'm sure yours does as well.
Not only that, but then it has on the back, just to remind everybody what kind of ads were in comics back in the early 60s. How to hypnotize and control others. Whoops. Looks like somebody lost their lunch. It's nauseatingly real.
Oh, God.
Joy Buzzer, Joke Book, Worms, Trick Black Soap, and of course, X-Ray Specs.
Oh, of course. There wouldn't be a comic book from the 60s if there weren't some sort of X-ray spec involved.
Oh, that was magnificent.
Excellent. Well, and then, we go really far into the future for our next issue, 2 issues from now. Avengers issue 10 for a story, one of the few stories that we're talking about here that wasn't at least initially conceived as the same character, or at least not that Stan sets up as Immortus is introduced, but he's not introduced as a future incarnation of Kang / Rama-Tut. He's just introduced as Immortus.
It does appear that in Immortus's case, at least, it was a later retcon that he was another alter ego of Kang.
Do we happen to know when that retcon occurred?
Yes, Chris and I look at each other stymied.
I want to say maybe the Mantis stories from the 70s. Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure, honestly.
I'll try to look it up myself and see if I actually come across anything.
It could be, as you mentioned, Murd, the Roger Stern 80s stuff involving Kang. That's actually more plausible. Ian's really being a trooper. He's going to the Marvel.
Yeah, trying to see text. Oh, I know exactly. I'm trying to like point it out, but you know what? Will if we come across it, I'll let you guys know. But at least for now, it is not part of like you said, original story.
Immortus is just a villain from the mists of time, essentially.
Yeah, extremely generic. He
almost got like a Fu Manchu, Ming the Merciless type look to him.
I think you might be right about it being the Celestial Madonna story, by the way, because that's the next thing they talk about here in the wiki. Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it first came up that Immortus is a future Kang.
Now, was that Englehart or Thomas?
Englehart. Englehart was all Mantis and the Celestial Madonna.
Yep.
Great Bronze Age Avengers stuff.
Yeah, he describes himself. Immortus describes himself as the mystic Immortus here. So he's kind of like Baron Mordo, except with time travel.
Yep, and he has a much different bag of tricks, as we'll get into in this issue. And especially considering that some of his bag of trips accidentally includes future Avengers, which is very funny when you think about it, because he calls upon Hercules at one point,
right?
And we get that, and there's one of the other people that he called upon,
Goliath.
Goliath, the future name of Giant Man, that Giant Man takes on. So that may very well be where he got the idea to call himself eventually Goliath, was taking on Goliath in this issue. There's my no prize. You're welcome. It's a very different style of issue here. Not to mention that it is also different artwork, as we mentioned. As this one is Don Heck rather than Mr. Kirby.
Well, Don Heck often gets overlooked because he's another one of the key early artists of the Marvel Age. He did a lot of work on Avengers. He co-created Hawkeye, the Black Widow. Very important artist in this early period. As I mentioned earlier, I just know from reading interviews that he was struggling a bit, and actually asked Kirby to help him with the Marvel method. Because Lee didn't want everyone to copy Kirby, but to incorporate sort of the essence, the spirit, the energy of his art.
Which I do get in this. And I like the variety. After 2 issues of Kirby, it was nice to get something at least a little bit different.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate his facial expressions. I actually really like his Captain America. Out of everybody that he draws, it looks different enough from what Kirby was bringing to the table.
And Heck was also celebrated for his rendering of women in comics.
Yep. I guess I'll start us off with initial impressions this time around. I actually like this issue more than I like the Kang issue. Just for how different it is. How there's way less Team Brigade involved.
Down on the Team Brigade.
Man, no, just no. No comic should involve Team Brigade unless it's actually called Team Brigade, and that way I can successfully avoid it. But my one issue with this, and you could call it manipulation, you could call it maybe even a little bit of brainwashing, perhaps on Immortus to try to get around it. But Captain America believes Immortus a little bit too easy that the Avengers are against him. And I know it's still early on in their run, but they have been together at least a year.
Well, Lee's tapping into that and this is gonna be a tried and true plot device for Cap for years. His guilt over the death of Bucky.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
They go back to that well again and again and again.
Yeah, which I like when they do that. And here it is very much, it's the equivalent of Spider-Man and Uncle Ben. It's his great shame that Bucky bit the quite literal bullet on the giant bullet, and that was that. But really, he gives in way too easily, and that's the type of infighting that I do not like in any comic, whether it be Silver Age or otherwise, where they don't trust their own teammates that much, unless it's, say, later Avengers, where like the Cookie Cat Quartet or what have you, where there's a bunch of former villains involved there, and maybe there might be more of a self-doubt involved of like, is Scarlet Witch really on the path of good? Is Quicksilver on the path of good? Yada, yada, yada. These guys are all well established and they've been a team for a while. It should not take 3 pages to make you doubt your entire team and fall into the machinations of Immortus. But that being said, I like what Immortus brings to the table here. I like that the Masters of Evil are involved. And I appreciate the calling on characters from the past to come in, even though I'm still not quite sure how he did it, but they just sort of just appear out of nowhere without even like a portal or what have you. It's like Hercules, and then Hercules shows up, be gone, and then he's gone. Robo, exactly. But yeah, I overall think I enjoyed this issue a lot, and I really dug the Don Heck artwork for variety's sake. Murd?
Well, I definitely take your point about how easy Cap was to snow here, but it's one of a couple different glaring holes in this story. It on a couple different in a couple different ways it feels like a cheat.
Yes,
and especially in that we come to the what has now become a time-honored convention of a story canceling itself out thanks to timey-whimiest.
Yes,
and also how Immortus is just so very poorly defined at this point as a character. I mean, the cover caption screams at us, featuring the truly different villainy of the evil Immortus. I think it doth protest too much here. It's going out of its way to tell us how different it is when in fact it's not that different.
Not to mention that kind of in the end, with the reset and all that jazz, it kind of becomes a not a dream, not an imaginary story level thing where absolutely nothing changes, and then you move on to the beginning of the issue at the end. That's it.
Plus, Immortus is totally ripping off Kid Eternity with his grabbing of past figures to be his lackeys.
Yep. Chris?
Again, I love the establishment of the history. I'm always been a big Baron Zemo fan. And we forget that in these early issues, Baron Zemo was the Avengers adversary. He appeared multiple times at the helm of the Masters of Evil. He'll be killed in issue 15.
So this is still the original.
Yeah, this is the Nazi war criminal.
Right. 12th Baron Zemo as opposed to 13th, which is
fantastic. And I love how they have him hiding in South America, where a lot of actual Nazis did flee after World War II to places like Argentina, which had fascist-leaning governments. I love seeing the Enchantress Executioner. So again, thoroughly enjoy this. My favorite was the FF of the 3 we've read, but so many great plot devices that have become tried and true moments in Marvel history. Cap agonizing over Bucky, Rick wanting to become his new partner, Cap saying, "Don't press me for an answer now, lad." I love how Cap called people lad, by the way.
It's too bad he didn't call him chum.
Yeah.
We will speak of it another time.
Yes. But Immortus at this stage is really underwhelming. He's kind of like a run-of-the-mill, sorcerer type villain. But again, the seeds are there, so it's going to become far more interesting down the road. I also noticed the artwork as I'm looking at it here. Immortus really is in the tradition of like the sinister, stereotypical Asiatic type villain, the way he's being drawn. Which is a convention you see often in sort of pulp characters from this time period and earlier.
He reminded me most of Ming the Merciless.
Yes.
I think he's like an old sci-fi serial villain.
Yep. It was great to see Thor battling Hercules. Again, it's not the Hercules we come to know and love later on, but Enough! I yield to the Thunder God. So, you can almost you could argue that their rivalry begins here in terms of Marvel history. Again, it's the design sense. I mean, this is Heck art, but Kirby designed the Executioner, designed the Enchantress.
Yeah.
Based on the cover, I'm assuming he designed Immortus too. Probably.
I would assume so.
So yeah, I always love when they put Merlin the Magician in these ludicrous outfits that he never would have actually worn in real Arthurian time.
Oh, my favorite here. I actually found the black and whites of Don Heck's artwork, which it's awesome that this exists on the internet like this. But looking at the costume for Attila the Hun.
Yes.
I very much do not imagine that Attila the Hun ever wore anything that looked anything like that ever. But he sure did in comic books, and he does right here. Yep. You're not supposed to get it. You're merely a pawn in a much larger game. Seize him, Attila. Like, come on.
Seize him, Attila.
Exactly. That's words you can put on a t-shirt and just wear that around. Seize him, Attila.
I can see it.
Yep. But I can see why it was easy enough to make these all the same people. Also, even looking at this, is that even if we don't get the introduction of him as a future Kang in this particular issue, just the futureness of it all, the mystery behind it, who or what this person actually is, it doesn't take much to then warp that into being, well, clearly it's the same villain that you've been fighting all along.
And the cover, he's wearing purple and green.
Exactly, which also helps. So onward to the discussion of the issue as a whole here. And Chris, you want to take that that home?
So it starts with a tried and true device, which you've come to love many times over the years, which is a training session, which once again shows that even though he's merely a mortal man, Captain America is more than a match for all the other Avengers. They talk about how it took them 45 seconds to take him down, and Iron Man goes, "You might at least breathe hard to make us feel better. Thanks for a great workout, boys. But I still think I should have been able to evade you for a full minute."
Yeah.
But again, this is what made Marvel special early on. These types of human interest scenes where you how often did you see superheroes training prior to these stories? You didn't.
Very true.
You just assume they had their powers, they knew what they were doing, and that was it. And here they're emphasizing that, they have to constantly stay at the sort of the knife's edge of their preparation, always everything to a fine cone cutting edge. That's great.
Yeah. The X-Men kind of started that off, though, right? Because with the Danger Room and what have you.
Of course, another Kirby concept.
They're teenagers.
Indeed.
They're young and inexperienced, and they need the training. But apparently, adult heroes do that sort of thing, too.
Yes, they do.
And then, of course, we have
and further advantage, it kind of teases the Avengers breaking up concept. It begins here.
Good point.
On the very first page, it kind of looks like they're already fighting with each other, when in fact, as you turn the page, we learn that they're just kind of sparring.
We should remind listeners that a lot of the early Marvel Silver Age sometimes would have a title page that would kind of set up the whole story. It wasn't necessarily ingrained in the flow of action that you're then going to read after that. This one, it is part of the actual action, but it's again, Stanley knew how to sell comics. There's no question about that. You mentioned, for example, the clever use of the editorial boxes, the captions to remind people of other issues that are connected. But again, he sets up the story very nicely here. Kirby's great pinup page. The next page, again, Rick asking to be part of the action. And Cap, I still carry with me the guilt of Big Bucky Barnes' tragic death. I fear no foe that lives or breathes, but I cannot bear ever again to lose a partner, a boy who had not yet fully tasted life. We will speak of it another time.
Another time. Maybe next Tuesday. I'm free at about 9:53 p.m. No earlier, no later.
Never before has a man spoken about his planet with such stentorian tones. Now, then we just go ahead.
A further note about the Silver Age portrayal of women at Mighty Marvel. Lower right panel here is Iron Man is broaching the subject of making Rick an Avenger. It concerns Cap's young sidekick, Rick Jones. Why don't we make his membership official in the Avengers official as the Wasp's is by giving him some sort of, it's like, hey, we let a woman be a member. Why not a teenage boy?
You know, it's not like she hasn't helped us out on many occasions with her scientific abilities and her superheroing. But yeah, you know, let's let the teenager be a part of it because ladies are cool.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Then we go to the Masters of Evil headquarters where they're, you know, bickering amongst each other about their inability to defeat the Avengers. Again, Zemo this is the original Zemo, the Nazi war criminal, who we later learn was, you know, his weapon is what killed Bucky in that fateful story. Don Heck drawing a stunning enchantress. And then, of course, Immortus appears in a shimmering green light and mist. You stand in the presence of Immortus. And boy, Murd, you're right. He is totally Ming the Merciless. Holy mackerel.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that goatee is just marvelous, absolutely marvelous.
And somebody among the Masters of Evil, I'm assuming the Enchantress, and she's the one to whom he sent the mental signal to let him in. At the top of page 4 here, somebody says, Immortus, the master of time, the one who rules the mystic realm of limbo where things never
got to be the
change.
Enchantress.
Yep.
Only she would know that.
Yep, somebody recognizes him. Somebody knows this guy by reputation.
Yep. I like the placement of the cloak as well. It's at least when he first shows up that he's very like, it is I, Immortus. You know, the placement is very regal of him. You know, that he's making his presence known, that he is more than just your average villain. He's a lot more.
And he proves that by conjuring up Paul Bunyan.
Yes, because that's absolutely the way to prove that you're menacing.
Executioner in his place.
Yes. Paul Bunyan. Man, they could have went with, all right, fine.
So he wants to recruit the Masters to fight the Avengers for his own purposes. And Zemo's like, well, let's help him out because, you know, if we can beat the Avengers doing that, great. Why not?
Yep.
And then just for Ian, more Teen Brigade.
At least we're limited to maybe 3 pages of Teen Brigade this time around.
But the best part about this.
Oh, yeah.
Say, Rick, do you see the jazzy new ad on the back cover of some of the new comics? Yep. No, Bill, what's it all about? See for yourself, pal. It's the coolest. I love Stan Lee's youth dialogue.
Mm-hmm. He's with the kids.
Yep. I have the original pencils for that as well here on the page.
Well, let's read. Notice that, by the way, again, Stan always shilling. Then in the background, there's a Thor comic.
Yes.
So the ad says, you can obtain superpowers. Send no money. Offer limited. What could go wrong?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. You mentioned the Thor comic. Thor didn't have his own comic at this point, correct? It was still Journey in the Mystery?
Yes, but that looks like Thor.
No, it is definitely the Thor cover text.
Yeah,
it's just fascinating that in the real world there wasn't a Thor yet. Fair enough.
So I think by then Journey in the Mystery had been reduced to tiny words.
Yeah. Okay. Journey in the Mystery featuring Thor. Yes.
So Rick goes to, I guess the ad tells him where to go, and Immortus has set up an office for himself. He has an exotic desk. Looks like a cat's head on it. Come in, Rick Jones. Thank you, but how did you know my name? I know all about you. It was to bring you that I placed that ad. Now, what if other people had turned up for the ad?
I really hope that he just said, come in, Rick Jones.
Every time.
My name is Steve Merchowich. Then go away. I don't want you. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, Rick Jones. My name is Susan. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're in top form, sir. So then, as Murd mentioned, Immortus conjures up Attila the Hun. And Rick uses some of the martial arts skills that he's learned from Cap. But he's restrained.
Is it just me, or does Attila the Hun have a skull on his belt? Or pretty close to it?
It looks like or
an alien.
A grim visage of some kind.
Yeah.
What I like, though, is that they then send Rick, I have to be the history teacher here, and the student of history, to the 18th century London, where, for whatever reason, the British Army in the 18th century is still using spears and wearing helmets from, earlier centuries, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, and they asked him for a shrubbery.
And of course, Cap can't find Rick. He calls the Teen Brigade. One last panel for you there, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
And then it leads into Immortus. And as Murd pointed out, this is where Cap, who usually is a very savvy, critical thinker, falls hook, line, and sinker for Immortus's grift here.
Well, that was Ian's point, but I completely agree. Because here's Cap at the bottom of page 7. You can't make me believe that they would betray me. And then, like, the very next panel, he's like, I will bring the Avengers back here. I swear it. And, well, at that point, he hasn't turned against the Avengers yet. But then the next page, he, instead of just going to them and saying, hey, this guy has Rick, you got to come with me and help me iron this out. Instead, he attacks them.
And here's one of Ian's tried and true favorite plot devices in Marvel Comics, when the heroes turn each other.
Yes.
Because they've made some misinterpretation, some mistake. And as Murd pointed out, or maybe I forgot which one, I apologize. This ties us back to the opening title page, where now you're seeing them fight again. And Cap's skills as the world's greatest hand-to-hand combatant allow him to, be in good stead in this battle.
Can I explain why this makes no sense?
Please.
Because earlier on in the issue, it was the Avengers who suggested to Captain America that Rick Jones get full membership. And then Captain America is screaming at them, you didn't want Rick Jones to become an Avenger.
He's overcome with anxiety and grief.
I see. Got it. Okay. Right.
And maybe Immortus is using some kind of mind control.
I'm going to go with that because that makes way more sense. Whether or not it was said or not, I don't want to believe Captain America would be this manipulated. So, yeah.
I also like how, at this point, they really haven't fleshed out Hank Pym's character and all that's going to happen.
No.
And how complicated he's going to be as a character. He's just like the sort of the straight-laced, companion to the Wasp. And then of course Goliath is summoned by Immortus, and they could do battle with him, and Hank is able to shrink, and then in keeping with the biblical story, Hank makes himself into part of a slingshot, and Goliath is felled in the same ways as he was and when he was fighting the Israelites.
Yep. And that's absolutely what Goliath was wearing when he fought the Israelites, by the way. In Jewish folklore, it's really well known that they loved wearing purple with pink. It's just absolutely what people want.
Oh, see, in my edition, interesting. He's wearing green.
Oh.
And his codpiece is white.
Let's see what mine shows, because I'm sure that every single version probably has something slightly different. As I go here to the history, I have the green. Yeah, okay. I have the green. So that's really interesting that the...
Is your breechcloth white?
Is my breechcloth white? Yes, my breechcloth is white. And that is the first time in my life I've ever said those words together in one sentence.
That's why I'm here, honey.
Yeah. So I guess this must have had recolors and retouching as well, similar to that Fantastic Four.
Yep. This omnibus I have here is the Odd Book Out.
And then Immortus conjures up a carnival version of Merlin, in of course his pointy hat.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to think of the other character that especially Iron Man wound up having a lot of history with.
Yes.
And it was very much not
Iron Man ends up back in Camelot with Dr. Doom.
Yeah, and this is very much not that version of Merlin.
No, there have been many Merlins.
I want to point out that there was a Merlin was not actually Merlin, right?
Yes.
Yep, he was actually a medieval mutant who would later go by names like the Mahayogi and the Black Llama. Oh no, wait, no, the Black Llama is something else. He was an Iron Man villain, but anyway, he was just a mutant pretending to be Merlin. And then there was an actual Merlin who was from the other dimensional world of Otherworld, and he was responsible for Captain Britain's origin and a couple other Merlins yet besides.
I love how Iron Man, again, the classic technology versus magic, and Iron Man essentially uses the equivalent of like a crowd control device or like, dance club effects to render Merlin incapacitated.
And now more tidy whiteys, only these ones are red.
Mine are red as well.
Yes.
Purple for me. I don't know who recolored this.
It's really...
Look at what Merlin is wearing. I mean, at least the blue robe with the white stars, at least that's traditional. In mine, it's like puke green with the burgundy stars and moons.
See if you can find the color retouch credits once we're done reading this, because I think that's that's something that I'm going to have to be like, why for more than anything else. If they even credit it, which is possible.
Color reconstruction, Michael Kelleher and Kellustration.
Okay. Not a fan. But what are you gonna do?
And so I guess this is the first Thor Hercules battle we're going to see in Marvel Comics.
Yes, it is, and he totally looks exactly the way that he would look every other time. But yeah, there's some good battle going on, and it's not the worst design for a Hercules. I mean, he's got strength, he's got a headband, he's got hair,
And this is always a great Lee. Another thing that where Lee set himself apart from other superhero comics. Thor is thinking how he's going to wage this battle while he's doing it. Which again, the greatness of thought balloons, which were used very well here.
Yep.
And then they're going to free Rick. They go to the Tower of London, which now is being defended by Crusader Knights, even though it's in the 18th century.
Sure, why not?
Why not?
This is all Immortus here. Immortus clearly placed all these people.
Well, actually, you're right. I stand corrected. He could pull warriors from different time streams to do his bidding.
Because if you didn't know, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
And Zemo is, Immortus has taken Captain America away. We must strike now while the Avengers are minus one man. So,
and then the Executioner says the braggart from the past he doesn't know if he's from the past. Did break them up as he vowed to do. He never vowed to break up the Avengers. The title page vowed that the Avengers would break up.
Well, you see, anything that's on a title page, any lettering that you see is actually what the characters are thinking. Clearly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on page 5, Immortus said he was going to Zemo challenged him to destroy one of the Avengers, and Immortus promised, not only shall I defeat one, I shall destroy them all. And now it seems to have that goal seems to have been downgraded to just breaking them up. He doesn't even really do that. He just hoodwinks Captain America into fighting his friends for a couple of pages.
And the next time he shows up, his goal is to have them go on vacation.
And the Masters then...
I shall treat them to ice cream.
I shall bring in their dry cleaning.
God. It's not even that late yet. Oh, my God. All right, now. Then they go into battle with the Masters. I liked here how they remind us that Zemo was a brilliant scientist, and his specialties were adhesives, using different ores. I think of adhesive X, right?
Oh, yes.
So here he has a weapon where liquid ore can turn into an actual unbreakable stone. He tries to render Thor incapable of wielding his hammer with that. The Wasp takes on the Enchantress. Iron Man battles the Executioner. Ultimately, the Avengers prevail because Captain America comes to his senses.
Yes.
And his shield destroys Zemo's liquid ore gun.
Immortus just kind of disappears. Like he's like once they no longer need him, he just kind of goes away, and then it's Masters of Evil.
Well, Zemo says, "But I thought Immortus had you trapped in the distant past." I should have done a German accent there. Sorry.
It's fine.
And Cap says, "And so he did, until I broke through his ring of guards who had never heard of judo or karate."
And then he walked out the exit and left.
Once I set Rick free, Immortus kept his pledge and returned me to the present. So they established that Immortus does have a sort of sense of honor here.
Yes.
From early on.
Yeah. Wasn't expecting that, actually. That was a good touch to make him a little bit different.
And then the Avengers used their time-tested teamwork to defeat the Masters of Evil.
It's good that they refound their teamwork, by the way, after it missing them for a little while. Yep. And
then the Enchantress used her magic to let it all be as it was before we met Immortus.
Who? And then that's it.
Yep. Well, the Masters of Evil remember what happened. The Avengers do not.
Yeah. Not a fan of that ending.
And then we go back to Cap saying the decision is for me to make when it comes to Rick getting membership.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's certainly they all certainly were very different stories. I'll give you that. It's a master too that again these happen as soon as they did, and that they're all the same person thanks to comic books. And I think this was actually a really cool deep dive.
Thanks to your suggestion, my friend. Furthermore, I always remember or think about if I was a reader in this time period, and if I had read superhero comics prior to this, and then you're reading these stories, again, these are new. This is a new approach. Again, it's the Marvel method. It's the emphasis on thought balloons, dialogue. Again, those real world touches that they're adding to the stories that made them so exciting for readers of the time. Everything we've been enjoying since, right through the MCU, it all starts here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we may very well see versions of this. We know that Kang is going to play a major part in Loki season 2, and then he'll be in the future movies as well.
When is Loki season 2 coming out?
Loki season 2 comes out a couple months.
Okay,
I think production was done on that before the writer's strike happened.
All right.
So I think we're going to get that by the end of the year. Secret Invasion's next. Secret Invasion, as we record this, is 1 week away. So that comes out next, and then after that is Loki. But we may very well get more of Rama-Tut and Immortus to come in one way or another.
To us at the end of Quantumania. So
plus Scarlet Centurion without very much. Yeah, that's another character we could have included in
That's
this,
very true. Yes,
but he's like a very variant Kang because he showed up in the Squadron Supreme's alternate reality.
Yep. Which maybe we'll get to that at some other point. But these are certainly the most prominent of the versions of Kang outside of, I guess, the heroic Kang, which of course would be Iron Lad.
Yes, that's right.
Yep, over in Young Avengers. So
L. Levinstein, great suggestion, my friend.
Thank you. My pleasure. And thank you guys for joining me in person to enjoy the Borscht Belt.
And we got to go in a time machine to some great ads from the early 1960s.
Yep. Indeed. Yep. I you're right, man. There's nothing quite like Effects.
No, I'm so glad I got this.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you, listeners, right there. The ones over there that are looking at us at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. We thank you so much for your continued support of the show in any way that you can give it. And we continue to be able to produce this show with your help. So thank you so much for that. And now I have to actually be able to find the end credits music somewhere in this large folder full of stuff.
It's under C, credits music.
There we go. All right, good. Okay, in that case, there we go. Follow us over at comicgeekspeak.com, youtube.com/comicgeekspeak for any of the videos. Our phone number, of course, is, of course, now I'm forgetting it all of a sudden. And usually I do remember this, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to the Comic Geek Speak website in order for a little bit of assistance here. But twitter.com/comicgeekspeak, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter. We're facebook.com/comicgeekspeak. If you would like to follow us on Facebook, and of course, Comic Geek Speak Supergroup as well, for any of that fun stuff. Our voicemail line is 267-702-6642. And of course, you can email us at comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. And of course, as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time. Shane would be very upset with me for getting this one wrong. We'll discuss this another time.